Fouke, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Ed. Thank you for having me.
So, as I mentioned, the first time I saw you was, although I had been following your software for a while, was on an episode of Dear Myrtle. And on that episode, I thought you did a very fair comparison of your software and mine. And that's when I said it's time to bring him on the show. Yours does some things that mine doesn't, and doesn't do some things that mine does. So they are obviously slightly different. But yours does some interesting things. So how did you get into this? This whole welcome to the software creator world.
Yeah, well, software creation is something that I've been doing for a very long time. I think, like many of us, I started on a Commodore 64 back in the 80s somewhere,
Yeah.
and grew into it like that. So that's something I've been doing for a long time. Genealogy, on the other hand, I haven't been doing for such a long time. So no, it's like 7 years ago, I think, somewhere in 2014, that I first started clicking around in all these great online sources.
And you found actually some of the same articles that I did. Mark Tucker
Yeah,
did an
that's
infographic on evidence-based research.
yeah, that was
Um,
a real inspiration. Another article of him, 10 things genealogy software should do, which is also a nice one. Of course, I found things about the genealogy proof standard, and about evidence-based software, and I thought, well, that's the software that I'm going to need. Uh, and then, of course, I found Evidentia, which was already around by then, which I really liked because of the evidence, of course, because of the evidence-based nature of it. And then I thought, well, that's what I need, but I also want this nice and large family tree
yeah.
showing up on my screen.
And of course, that's one of the things that Evidentia doesn't do is let you build out a tree builder. It's not a tree builder,
Yeah,
which yours falls into that tree builder category.
exactly.
So there's several of us out there that are techno nerds. What are you using to develop Centurial?
I've always been developing in a Microsoft stack, so it's all Microsoft.NET, C
Okay.
Sharp.
So this will only run on a PC.
At the moment, yes, it does.
Okay.
It's only Windows. Yeah.
Okay. So what I like to do on the show, as I explained to you off screen, was I cover three things. Number one, I just installed your software and I don't know what to do. Well, where do I start?
Yeah.
Number two, if I have to enter data into your program, what do I get for my effort?
Yeah.
And then number three, we'll cover what are you most proud of? What do you want to show off? So if you want to share your screen, let's start with that first question. Where do we start?
Where do we even start? Yes, let's see. First, share my screen like this, and then I think it will pop up right. Yes, very good. Well, this is Centurial. As it starts off, so you start off in the quick start menu. If it's really the first time that you use Centurial, then I'd like to suggest you start with these interactive tutorials at the bottom, which will take you through the program without you leaving the program. So it will show you how it works. I'm not going to do that for now. I'm going to, of course, give you a private tour of my own. But if it's really the first time, then please do consider these interactive tutorials. They will really help you through. What I would like to do is show you how it works using a famous Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands myself, and I want to use a famous Dutch painter, Vincent van Gogh, as an example. Same here. So, and it's a thankful subject because there's a lot of sources available, of course. Well, like any other software, you start with by creating a project. So let's call it a demo project. And then Centurial does a suggestion of its own. It says, well, it's evidence-based, and all evidence comes from sources. So let's add a source. That's how you start. Now, Vincent van Gogh I'm not related to him, unfortunately. So I don't have any family artifacts or something about him. Nothing like that. So I'll have to do with something different. Like let's say I'd start with a book. But of course, if it's your own family tree, Yeah. Ah, my volume. Yep. Okay, let's do that. Let's see. So we're starting off. If it's and the first thing you do is add a source, and this means adding a source reference in the end. And so Centurial comes with all these templates. I think there are more programs around that do something similar. Of course, if it was your own family, you'd start probably with some personal knowledge, which in the end is a source. Might not be the best source or the most reliable one, but it is a source. So that's a great starting point. You could do an interview, something like that. Perhaps you do have a family artifact, and you can add that. As I was saying, Vincent van Gogh isn't related, so I'll start with a book. Let's see, that's an authored source, so a book. And then, of course, Centurial does some suggestions for fields to fill out. So let's see, I think it was Stephen Knife, his book, Van Gogh, The Life, I think it's called. And then you start filling out these fields, of course. I always say if it's not applicable, then leave them empty. Interesting field is the repository. How would I find this book back if I was looking for it? How would I retrieve it? In this case, I'd say it's published, so that's a nice way to retrieve it. I think it's called Random House, the publisher. It's located somewhere on your side of the big pond. And then you fill out, I know it was published somewhere in 2012. And let's say, I don't have the book around, but let's say that on page 1 there's something interesting. So I'll put in the page number. Now, as you can see on the bottom left here, it already created a nice source reference, all in the spirit of course, of evidence explained by Elizabeth Schoenils. That was step 1, an important step always. And you always start with this one because this is the least fun, I think. So let's get that done first. And then if you hit OK, Centurial will open something which is called the source view, which again has the source references at the top. And now what can I do here? I can add pictures. For example, I can put in the book, or usually I'll put in the text or something like that. And then the second important step is to start extracting the information. I always like to say that every source is a miniature family tree. If you have a birth certificate, it's 2 parents and a child. If you have a marriage certificate, it's two newlyweds and their parents usually. And that's exactly what we're going to draw here at the bottom.
So let me stop you there because I think this is important. So basically, as you say, every source is its own family tree, and as we enter sources, we're identifying relationships, and that creates some sort of family tree that you're going to merge into a larger tree.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Okay, I think that's real important because that's far different from any other software program out there.
Yeah, and that's exactly how Centurial works. So we're just going to focus on this particular source and not going to be bothered about all the other sources that we might have. We will do that later on. So in this case, I don't have to book around, but let's say I'm guessing that on page 1, Vincent van Gogh is introduced. So probably it has its family name. It probably has its nickname or the name everyone knows him by, Vincent. It will mention that it's a male. It will probably say he was born on the 30th of March, 1853. And it probably will have his death date as well, the 29th of July, 1890. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that's all that this particular source would mention. Of course, it will have a lot of more information, but let's keep it simple for now. So that was the important second step. We created this little family tree. I'll do a larger example later on. And then we hit the autocorrelate button at the bottom. which will merge it into the larger tree. Now, of course, we just created a new project, so the large tree is unavailable. So currently there's not much to see here. It will be more interesting later on, so I'll skip it for now and I'll be back here later on. But now all of a sudden we have a little family tree, which says exactly what we just entered, right? We have Vincent van Gogh with his birth and death dates. The things become really interesting when we add a second source. So that's the next step. Of course, and this is a cycle that Centurial uses. You always add information by adding a new source. In this particular case, I would like to take a look at his birth certificate, which I was able to find on Family Search, actually. So here it is. When we add this one, I'm going to pretend I'm going to do it like this. When we add it, we need to think a bit about what we're actually looking at, because we're not looking at the source itself, because that's somewhere in an archive. No, we're looking at a digital scan, a digital image of that source. So that's what we enter. We first enter the digital image. And then, as you can see at the top, that is the provenance panel. It says, well, I, the researcher, have personally studied and analyzed, now, well, what? A digital image, that's true, of a. And then I have to select the second layer, which is, in this case, a vital record. So that's an important step to do here.
So you differentiate between format and record type.
Exactly. And about the representation of your source. You're not looking at the original record, you're looking at a digital image of that record.
Okay.
Well, now, and then Centurial will offer us these two panels to fill out, which is a lot of work. So one of the first interesting things that I added quite early on was the browser extension, which is at the top of my Google Chrome browser here. And with a single click, this allows me to not only scan this particular source, but also import it into Centurial, which it does all on its own. So let's see what it did. It actually created quite a nice source reference, and it also downloaded the document, the scan. Now I always say double check the source reference, because it was done automatically, of course, but that's not as good as you always wanted to do. You would do it yourself. So let's see. Well, this one, the digital image, that one usually goes quite well, because that's the website. So Centurial can automatically find all the details of the website. Mm-hmm. For the second, it also decided to create the same layers as we just considered. So the second layer is actually the vital record. It was able to see the name of the town where Vincent van Gogh was born, Zandert. But for the rest of it, it's quite empty. So the first thing I always like to do is add the additional details. By now, I've done this so many times that I know them by heart, but usually you look at the original document for this. So let's see, let's put in some additional detail, births for the year 1853. That's the label on the cover of the book, but then in Dutch, but I'll skip that for now. It's on page 9. It's certificate number 29, which is about Vincent Willem van Gogh. And the date of this source is the 31st of March, 1853. So I'll enter all these details, and as you can see, the source reference at the bottom left is updated accordingly.
Do you support different date formats?
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah. So if and of course for the source, the source date, it's not relevant. But if this particular one was in, say, a Hebrew date, then I could do that.
Okay.
So that's all supported, and this is interesting. But it's even more interesting. I can show it later on when we're importing data or extracting data from a source. So let's see. Let's hit OK again. So that's updated. You can see the source date on the left here. That's all done. Now, well, then let's zoom in a bit and see what details we have. And this is, of course, and now we're going to do the same as we just did before, which is extract all the information from this particular source. Another nifty little feature that I've included is something I call clips, which is the ability to select parts of the document For example, if we start reading, then it says, well, who appeared before the civil registry? Well, that was, and then it starts here with the Dutch word heer, which means lord or sir. So I can make a little clip of that, a little rectangle, and I can use that. I add a source here in the information panel, and I say, okay, this is, of course, this is a claim that says that we're talking about a male person here. So I can connect that to male. So now this little rectangle in the document is connected to the claim male. And I can continue just like that. So it says, and this is the father of Vincent van Gogh, Theodorus van Gogh. So I can select his name, which is in the document here. And I can connect that with a single click to the claim. And I can also.
So you're actually tagging the image.
Exactly.
Similar to face tags on other programs.
Yeah, exactly. And I can link, so I can link each of these parts, and it will be of interest later on. So let me continue this one. So it says he's 31 years old. So I can enter that one, 31 years old. And then you see that Centurial automatically says, okay, 31 years old on the source date, which was the 31st of March, 1853, which of course later is interesting evidence. So that I connect that one. Then it says that he's a reformed pastor in church. So let's see, that's his occupation. And this is, of course, this is not unlike entering data in other tree builders. The only thing is that, of course, we're doing this in the context of a source. So we have a residence here, which says Zundert. That's okay. And then let's see now, things become interesting because there's also, of course, he has a wife, which was the one giving birth, of course, and we have a child. And then it says here that the child was born on the 30th of March. So let's enter that one as the birth date, the 30th of March, 1850.
So hold on a second. What did you just do on that bottom box?
Yeah, so what I did is I'm drawing this family tree, right? So okay. I'm adding partners, I'm adding children. I could add another child if there was another one in this particular source, which it isn't. So I'll remove that. But you can create quite a large family tree here. I could add another partner, and this allows me to create the little family tree that is this source. And then for each of the so these are the persons, these are the relations, and for each person or each relationship, I can enter data. I could enter a marriage date if I like, if that's in there, or any kind of information. In this particular case, we only have one. Let's see. Let's remove this one, and let's remove this one. We only have a father, a mother, and a child. So that's what we got here. And you just copy all the information from the source. So let's see, he was born at 11 o'clock before noon. You can put that in.
Frank wants to know, can the shading that you're doing on the image, can those be color coded so I could, like, for instance, use different colors for different people?
Oh, that's actually an interesting thought. No, at the moment, no, it can't, but different colors for different people might be interesting. The interesting thing is you can click the other way around. So if you think, okay, where was it that his given names were, then you click and then it selects on the right side. So you can quickly see where each piece of information was found. So let's see, what did we do? We had 11 o'clock, that's okay. And then, of course, he was born in Zundert, because that's what this whole document is about. What else have we got of interest? So we can see his mother here, which is Anna Carbentus was her name. So I can select all these names. So let's put that in.
And I told you we had some very technical people in our audience. Lewis wants to know, are you storing the metadata for the highlighting that you're doing in Centurial or as part of the image?
No, it's all in Centurial. So the image that you put in is not changed at all. Okay. There's always the original image, and then all the metadata is in Centurial. Of course, later on, when we start, you can export things the way you want them. So let's see what we have here. We know that the mother was female. We know that the child that was born was actually male, it says. And then, of course, the important one, here we find the given names, Vincent, Willem, and last name was Van Gogh, like this. And then one last thing I always like to do is I like to pick the signature, in this case of his father, Theodorus Van Gogh, and I can put that in as well, here at the bottom, signature, so I can analyze that one later on. So as you see, and that's really interesting actually, is you totally focus on this particular source. You don't do anything else. Mm-hmm. You just look at this source, you extract all the information. Of course, the disadvantage of that is that you have to type in all this information every time for each source, right? So if the next source says Van Gogh again, you have to retype that again. But that's actually, in the end, that's actually a good thing, because you really focus on the spelling in this particular source. And then Centurial will later on point out if there's perhaps a difference in spelling.
And you've just justified why I make the people do the same thing.
Well,
preaching to the choir, as they say.
Yeah. And I really think that if you work like that and focus on that particular source, then you will find details that you otherwise would have missed or skipped or ignored, perhaps even. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's all about this particular source. I think we've got most of the information that we needed. Now the autocorrelate step actually becomes interesting. So correlation, I'm not sure, Ed, if it's in evidence. Do you use the same term, correlation? I don't remember. I don't know anymore. But to correlate means to decide if this Vincent van Gogh is actually the same Vincent van Gogh as we had from the other source. Is this the painter? And of course, in the end, you don't know. But the thing is, it probably is the same guy. So let's go ahead. And if later on we find that it's not, then we can change that again. And Centurial tries to do this automatically for you, which saves you from a bit of a boring job.
Based on what?
Based on all kinds of things. So based on stuff like names, but also birth dates, death dates, family relations. And yeah, I always was a bit skeptical myself about this particular feature, because I felt it could be quite error prone. But it somehow works out quite beautifully, and it saves you a lot of work.
Well, I'll let you finish that part, but
yeah. So
it did correlate them.
Yeah. So I pressed correlate, and then it did the correlation, the automatic correlation itself. And let's see what it did. Well, the result of the correlation is displayed here. We have 3 rectangles now, each rectangle representing a person. Of course, we already had some information about Vincent van Gogh. So the larger rectangle, that's Vincent, the information from all the other sources that we had. And this little rectangle on top of it, that's representing the Vincent van Gogh from the source that we just correlated. So that looks good. He connected both of them. He decided it might as well be the same person. And then, of course, the parents were not yet available in the project, so that's why there are larger empty rectangles, and on top of them is there information from the source.
So
yeah.
What two use cases? One, I get a record for Vincent that has a different birth date.
Yeah.
Or even more complicated, a different mother.
Yeah.
How does correlation, and I'm not so much autocorrelation, but how do you maintain those 2 differing sets of data? Or account for them?
Yeah, well, in the end, what it does is it tries to match, and if it matches, then it does, and if it doesn't match, then it will not correlate them. The interesting thing is that after that you can improve the correlations manually, if you like. So if you think, well, Centurial didn't understand, or I think they are the same person, then you can update that manually. You can start dragging these things around if you like. creating different people. So, for example, these two were now combined. But if I say let's make a separate person, then all of a sudden I have two Vincent van Goghs. But no, in this case, I think it's the same person because of the spelling of the name, because of the birth date. So, for all we know, this is one single person. So let's combine them.
But if I have like a different father, using your analogy of a tree, if I have a source that shows a slight variation in the tree, but it is the same person, I just don't know which one's accurate.
No, but
are we now in a split tree scenario, or?
Well, Centurial will. I don't have an example ready, so I can't show you. But Centurial will then show two different fathers in the family tree, and which means that you usually have to do some more homework and find some more sources to further investigate.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question. Now let's see. I think correlation looks good, so let's close this correlation panel for now. And now we start to have an actual family tree. And remember, this family tree is constructed of the two sources that we already entered, which I think is best seen if we go one level deeper, which is the person view. Let's go ahead and look at that one. This is, of course, a view. This displays all the information for Vincent van Gogh. This is, of course, similar to person views in other software. The only thing is you can't edit any of these fields directly. It's read only, because the data was entered in the context of a source. So here at the bottom right we have the both sources that we have been using so far, and these little index numbers display. For example, the family name Van Gogh was available in both sources, so that's a 1 and a 2. That's looking good. But the given names were only available. We got them from source number 2, and so you can see exactly where we got the information from. So that's looking good, and actually something more is already happening, and you can see that. You can best see that for Theodorus van Gogh, his father, because all of a sudden there's a indication of a birth date for his father, and I don't seem to remember we entered one. So let's see how Centurial got that one. So we open the person view for this for his father. We can see, okay, apparently it took it from the source the second source, the birth certificate, and we can even go one level deeper to the analysis of the birth date. So let's do that. And then we see that there's already some evidence apparently available for the birth date. So here at the top, you can see the research question. What do we know about the birth date of Theodorus van Gogh? And then each line here is evidence.
So you've actually kind of calculated out an analysis, what I would call an analysis, what the program has indicated what the indirect evidence says.
Exactly. So what I did is I included, I think it's about 15 or so rules now, logic that just generates indirect evidence. For example, this one, of course, we entered his age in the source. So we said he was 31 years of age on the 31st of March. Excuse me. And this, of course, is indirect evidence for a birth date to lie between April of 1821 and March of 1822. Yeah, that's so.
Family. There's a program out there called Family Tree Analyzer that will do very similar speculation.
Yeah.
So, can you show us a more fully populated tree?
Yeah, I can do that. Would you mind if I add one more source just to demonstrate another point? And then I'll do exactly that. I have one more, which is this is Open Archives, a Dutch website that has a lot of data from Dutch and Belgian archives. And of course, I was able to find the marriage certificate for the parents of Vincent van Gogh. In this particular case, I can again use the browser extension, which will, in this case, because there isn't a scan available, it will make a screenshot of the website, so that's automatically added. And in this particular case, it is even able to extract all the information automatically from the website, because the website is using microdata on the background. So it already created the family tree here at the bottom. It got all the information and all the ages and all stuff. So you're almost
So
wanting to.
What websites will that work with?
Yeah, this microdata is an open standard. So any website, I think genie.com, is it pronounced like that? That has microdata, so that will work. In the end, Centurial will always import any website, doesn't matter which one. For some of them, there's I included some additional logic to improve the import, but it will always at least make a screenshot and get the correct URL out of it, of course, and the correct title, stuff like that. And it's on the roadmap to increase the number of websites for which I have a particular, a specific web scraper. Yeah, but so some of these things work unexpectedly on websites I never tried them before on, but because of the open standard, it sometimes just works, as in this particular case. And then we again autocorrelate, and then we start having an actual, and so the family tree starts growing. And then if that's right, if you keep on doing that, then you keep growing your family tree. So let's switch to another project. Let's see if Centurial wants to cooperate. Yes, it does. So here we have actually quite the same project. Again, Vincent van Gogh, only this time with a whole lot more sources, which are available here in the source list. So let's see, we have a sliding panel here that has an overview of all the different sources. So we have some billion graves, we have the original civil registry, we have some Wikipedia in here. For example, this is the civil registry from Zundert, where the family lived for quite some time. So there's a birth certificate for each of the children of the family. I think they had 6 or 7 in total. So you can look at that. And then, of course, like any other genealogy software, you have a person list, which is just a list of all the persons that are currently in the research project. So that's, and then something similar is here available, which is the event list, which is a list of all the events in the project. And then, of course, let's see if we look at the person view for this is the father of Vincent van Gogh. You can see actually that if you keep adding the sources, then you really get a nice picture of the man's life. So you see, well, Van Gogh is spelled the same everywhere, so that's not that's looking quite okay. Something interesting is happening here at the birth date, as you can see. Apparently, somehow we have 2 birth dates, and that's of course one of the interesting features of, I think, any evidence-based genealogy software. That it's no problem to have multiple conclusions. Well, it's a problem from a genealogical point of view, but it's not a problem for the software, at least. So let's see what happened here. We can again analyze all the data that we have here. Now, this is again interesting. We see these little clips. Those are the clips that we drew ourselves earlier on when we were extracting the information from the source. So we have one source that says he was born on the 8th of February, which is his gravestone. So let's look at a bit more detail here. Oh, here it is, the gravestone. Yeah, and it says, okay, born on the 8th of February, 1822. And then we have 2 other sources, which are, oh, well, they're Genie website. So I don't know. And then we have some additional evidence, which additional evidence means that it supports both conclusions, so that they won't help. Okay, so that's looking good. We have all these ages from all these different birth certificates. We have some indirect evidence, but that's all supporting both conclusions. Well, then in this case, I'd like to I think the gravestone will probably be the correct one, so I'll mark these as not plausible, and that's of course an interesting thing. So we entered all the data and extracted all the data in the source, and then in the person view it's read only. You can only read the data. You can't change anything. But then here in the analysis view, you can say, okay, this evidence, I think that's not plausible. And as soon as I mark it as not plausible, and there were two of them, so I have to do it twice. Then they move to the bottom of the list, and they are grayed out so that you know that you mark them as not plausible. And then you see that Centurial updates the conclusion accordingly. So now all of a sudden, all the evidence leads to the same conclusion, which is that he was born on the 8th of February.
Lewis wants to know how the sources are numbered.
Are numbered.
The 1, 2, 3, the footnote indicators.
I got it. They're alphabetically. So I think the first one, they're alphabetically.
I've never seen so many Z's. Zeds, I'm sorry.
It's Zandert. Yeah. No, they're alphabetically, and then they're in the same order as in the person view. So if you're looking, that usually helps. Here you can see more obvious. They're all in alphabetically. So let's see. So we mark this evidence as not plausible, which updated the conclusion not only here but also in all the other displays. So here in the person view, in the network diagram, it's now displaying correctly. Even in the timeline here, it says the 8th of February. So that's how and you can do this, of course, for each and every fact here. You can do a similar analysis. It makes a nice timeline for the residence and for the occupation, all from the sources. So each and every detail that you see here is based on the sources. For example, here's the signature that we created a little clip from earlier on. You can do an analysis of that one, and then you see all the different signatures over time chronologically, and you can even see that in the later years he started to change his signature a bit, and the stroke above the T became bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's interesting. And all source-based. You can always go back to the original source with just a single click, of course. So that's all available. Well, and then another feature that is interesting is that in the person, sometimes you are going through your list, and then all of a sudden you notice something peculiar. For example, I noticed this Theodore van Gogh here that is looking a bit lonely. You can see all the bold lines are people in the actual family tree of Vincent van Gogh, and somehow this one didn't get connected. So let's do a bit of an analysis here. So we have a Theodore van Gogh here, and we have another one here and another one here. So what happened? Well, what you can do is you can say, well, let me view the correlation. And now we're back to this screen. Where you can see on the right, again, the correlation panel. We see 3 Vincent van Goghs, this one, and we have one here, which is a different one apparently, and we have a third one here. So let's see. The first one, that's 1857, 1891, birth date, that date, okay. The second one is 1822, that must be the father, so that's okay. And then the third one is 1857, 1891. Oh, that's probably the same as the first one. So let's remove this one from the list for now. And then, so we somehow got into a state where we have 2 Theo van Goghs. This is the brother of Vincent. And somehow Centurial decided not to correlate them. Well, you can easily fix that by simply dropping this one over here, and then Centurial will combine the information. So now we're back to just one Theo van Gogh. And you can see that it's also gone from the person view, from the person list, and all the information is again combined. That's an interesting feature.
Tamara Jones is asking what your source is for the given name of Vincent's younger brother, the stillborn child from 1852.
1852. Well, this is the kind of questions that you have when you even when you're doing your own family research and it's your own family, and all of a sudden you think, huh? Did I actually know that name? Well, let's see. In this particular case, let's go back, and I think I seem to remember it's this website, a Dutch website, not unlike Billion Grace, which has it as Vincent van Gogh. Again, of course, I don't know if this source is correct. It doesn't have an image, so we can't see what's on the actual gravestone. And in the end, and I think that's one of the most interesting things that starts to happen if you do genealogy like this. It almost doesn't matter, because if one day we decide, okay, this source is wrong, then we simply go to we go to the let's see, is this the correct one? This is the correct one. We say, well, I think it's not plausible, and then the name is gone, right?
You have a justification for why it's not plausible, or?
Well, I don't have at the moment, so
Okay.
I'm gonna put it back on undetermined. But that's the thing. You start going through your family tree, you find something interesting, and then you can always go back and redo your logic or think some more about your conclusions.
Well, I'll give you a use case example here. I would do the same thing you just did. I would say it was implausible, but next year, when I ran across this record again, I would why did I think that was implausible? And I don't want to have to redo all my thoughts. So is there a place where I can put down the reason I think it's not plausible?
Yeah, it's right here on the right in the proof argument box. So you can type.
So that's specific to that claim, to that evidence.
This specific research question. So this is actually, and this is a bit as the genealogical proof standard. This is the actual proof argument of that. This is and this has all the information in one place. So it has the research question at the top here. It has all the different evidence, all the evidence that we found. It has the conclusions based on that evidence, and it allows you to type in a proof argument.
Okay. Reports?
Not at the moment. No.
Oh, it's no reporting. Okay.
No reporting, but
Okay.
it's of course. Well, the interesting thing is that it's taken quite some time to develop all the data entry part of this. The only export you can do at the moment is, of course, a JETCOM, which will also include all the source references. So it will become quite a big one. So that's available. But at the end of at the roadmap, at the end of this year, most certainly I'm going to do the first reports. It's not. I did a little survey at the start of this year to see what users are looking for, which new features they want, and the reports didn't actually end up that high on the list. There were some things that that the users wanted more. So I'm working on that first. But they will be in 2021. There will be reports in Centurial.
Excellent. Yeah. So, I think you've showed us definitely the approach to take with the software, and definitely, I see the payoff. You know, where the value really is. What are you most proud of? What do you want to show off? The whole thing that you just showed off? Is that?
Well, in the end, I was thinking about that question. In the end, what is interesting is and that's perhaps what I'm most proud of. I've seen users starting Centurial. I know these users were new at genealogy, so they started using Centurial, and they said, oh, apparently I have to add a source, and apparently I have to extract the information, and apparently I have to correlate. And they started doing that, and they started analyzing stuff when they found things that weren't looking good. And without them knowing it, they were doing genealogy according to the genealogical proof standard.
Yeah.
Without them even realizing it, without them ever reading anything about that. And I think it was Elizabeth Sean Mills who once said that, how do people learn how to do genealogy? Well, they learn it through the software they're using, and that's, in this case, it's actually working. So that's, in the end, that's something that's really surprising to see.
Can you stop sharing your screen for a minute? Let me
Yes.
switch us back over to. Okay, and my camera froze, but that's okay. They want to talk to you anyway. I'm staring. You can't see it, but I'm staring intently at your box.
Yeah.
So people are asking about your pricing model, and I did look at your subscription pricing model, and it is a little bit different. You want to explain your pricing model?
Yeah, I will. Well, let's start off with what it is. Well, the price model is quite simple. It's 20 euros per year, which is I'm not sure what the rate is at the moment, but it's I think it's like $22 or something. So yeah, it's per year. That's of course is different from most other genealogical software that I've seen, which usually asks for a one-time fee. The interesting thing is that, but then again, if they upgrade to a new major version, then usually you have to upgrade as well. So you have to pay something additional. The interesting thing with Centurial is that at the moment I'm at a 2-month rate of sending out new updates. So every 2 months there's something new. There's something new features, bug fixes, but always new features as well. And so yeah. I decided that when the reports are added, then I'll be naming it 2.0. But that's just a number. So updates are frequent, and I'm constantly working on it. So I thought, well, let's just do a yearly fee, and do it like that.
The question I had about it was if you stop paying, then it defaults to the trial version.
Yep, that's correct.
So do I lose functionality, or
no?
Do I lose any data?
No, and I was particularly keen on doing it correctly there at that point. The only difference between the trial version and the personal edition is the number of sources that you can have. So if you have the free version, you can go up to 20 sources, and then after that you can't add any more sources. When you have the personal edition, you can do any number of sources, and that's the only difference. And then if you decide to stop paying for, of course, that's just fine. Then you still can open your projects which have more than 20, 50, 100, 2,000 sources, no problem.
You just can't add any more.
You can't add any more. But you still can export them to get JetCom. You can still do anything, all of the other stuff. And that somehow seemed fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go through the chat and see what other questions we have. Lewis, I did see that comment you made about me starting early. That was by accident. I set the alarm clock to the wrong time. We ended up starting 5 minutes early, I think. We talked about the color coding. We talked about where the linkage information gets stored. You showed good. It was a good demonstration of the how you resolve contradictory information. Languages. What languages is the program in?
Yes, it's currently available in English, in Dutch, and in German.
Okay.
So those are the three main ones. And that's simply, of course, I'm from the Netherlands, so that's a market. Visiting all these local genealogical groups and stuff. English, of course, and there was a lot of interest in Germany from the early start, so I added the German version.
I get a lot of interest from Germany and Denmark when it comes to translations.
Yeah.
So
I was very thankful to find a German user who was willing to do the translations, because they're better than I can do them myself. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. Frank in the chat is offering to help. I'd say people, if they have trouble in the program and can't get a hold of you, he's actually only offering that to Maria, but I'm sure he means everybody. Lewis says, will it accept other scripts, Romanian, Russian, Hebrew?
Yeah, actually it does. I never tested it, but yesterday I think I got an email from quite a new user who said, well, I've just entered some Cyrillic data, and that apparently just went fine. The only thing was he had both Cyrillic data and Latin characters, and he wanted to be able to select which one to prefer. and that's something that's currently not included. So yeah, you can enter it in any. It's just a Unicode, so that all works. And then I will update something to select to allow users to select the preferred characters.
So which browsers does the extension work with? And I think I know the answer here, but
yeah, well, I think I'd introduced them like 2 years ago, and then it was Chrome and Firefox. I've been reported and that's still how those two. I've had reports from users that are mentioning that the new Edge version is also Chrome-based, I think, so it should work as well.
Safari, I think, is as well now, isn't it?
I don't know, but I will most certainly look into it.
I'm not sure. Lewis is going to correct me in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, that's right. There's a lag, so it may take a little bit longer. So Firefox surprised me, but Edge does not. A lot of the browser folk now are switching to the Chrome engine under the covers.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Same was true with another program we featured on the showcase, Sally May. He had only tested it with Chrome, but we did some quick tests and it worked with some of the other other things. Yeah. Lewis says, "Sorry, I don't know about Safari." Oh, Lewis, you let me down. I make a mistake and you're correcting me. That's our partnership. I'm aware that my camera's frozen, by the way. I apologize for that, but if I try and fix that now, I'll break other things. So, Tamara says Safari is based on WebKit, even though it's Apple, which is true. It's based on WebKit, so there's a good chance it will work in Safari.
Yeah. So I just have to take some time and put them in the correct stores then for the extension. Yeah.
Do we have other questions? Do you envision? This is Luke Chalmet. Sorry if I butchered your name, Luke. Do you envision to develop graphical outputs, different reports like solution-based genealogy software offer?
Yeah, most certainly. So the initial goal for Centurial was to create evidence-based software, but then have all the nice features of all the available conclusion-based software. So yes, there will be reports. There will be all kind of reports. I will be doing probably some polls with the users to find out what they're looking for, and all kind of graphical output. That will all be one day part of Centurial, but all evidence-based. So you will always have the sources and the evidence and the information right at hand.
So let me use one word here that will strike fear in your heart. The Mac.
Yeah, get that question a lot. Two things. I've been told it works perfectly with parallels. So that's, and I know users have been doing that. I also know that users have been trying to use what's called Wire, I think. Wine.
Wine is a Linux-based Windows emulator.
That doesn't go as well. That doesn't work too well. So that's not an option. And I'm very secretly, but that will be quite a large development effort. I've been looking at the Microsoft, the latest. There's a framework coming up for doing desktop applications on both Windows and Mac. So I will be looking at that. It will be an incredible development effort to transfer Centurial from what it is now to that one. So, but I'm not promising, but.
Lindell Martin says, "Can pictures of documents be extracted
from Centurial? You mean?
Yeah. From or into?
No, you can. Each of these images can be saved, and then you can extract them. You can add additional. You can always, and if you say, "Oh, I need a second one," you can add multiple files to a single source, stuff like that. You can remove them. That's all.
Okay. Lewis says individual developers should not waste their time trying to develop for platforms they don't work with. Interesting position, Lewis. That may make for an interesting discussion. I'm not going to. I'm not going to broach it here. I'm not sure I agree with you, but
I was gonna. It was my argument that I was gonna use with my wife to finally buy a nice Mac.
Yeah, when I did mine, I wanted to come out with Mac the first day. Mac users have what, 20% of the market share, something like that. But I think it's higher in genealogy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come out with both the same day, and that's when I found out you can build Windows software on a Mac. You can't build Mac software on a Windows machine. So I bought a cheap Mac off of Craigslist so I could compile something.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I develop on both at the same time. My computer in here is a PC, and when I go over, when I later this evening go to the living room and watch TV, I'll have a MacBook in my lap, working on the exact same code. So
yeah, if I'm going to do a Mac version, then it will be a real Mac version.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's time to wrap up. I want to say thank you. Let me double check here if there's any chance. I want to thank you for being our guest and going into so much detail. A lot of people I can tell off of the group. I'm muted again. You should be able to hear me now. A lot of people saying good things about it in the chat. I think you'll get a lot more questions probably coming up as people view the pre-recorded information. Where can they get a hold of you?
Just use the contact form on the website, Centurial.net, and then I'll be there.
Okay, cool. I want to thank everyone for attending. The recording will be out there tomorrow morning in high def. And I will say this, that next week we'll be meeting with Frederic Lepeau, the president of a free desktop program called Ancestris, developed out of France. So we'll get to see yet another tree building software program that you might find interesting. So that's it for this week on the Genealogy Software Showcase.